if I was to give a message to the users, we don't know that this is a bug. We're not trying to get over on you. We're not trying to make $1 million off of you and leave you stranded. Like we care about it. We go to the next effort. We stay up at night. Our wives are mad at us. We still answer tech support at 4 or 5 in the morning when our kids want to do stuff. Like, we really care. That's what I wanted to say.
Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex, from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And I'm super excited and very proud to yet again bring on some very prominent developers from the iOS music space. And a bunch of the apps that these guys have worked on are some of the best in the entire App Store. So I really think you're going to enjoy their commentary on some of these topics as they have a ton of experience. And don't forget, we'd love to hear your perspective as well, so definitely make sure you leave your thoughts on these topics in the comments below. And finally, I just wanted to personally thank each and every one of these panelists for being here. You guys all did such a good job informing and explaining some of the issues that you guys are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Plus, you guys gave some great suggestions on how we can come up with some resolutions to hopefully resolve some of these issues in the near future. Alright, and now without further ado, let's hop right into the 7th episode of this podcast, and I very much hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the 7th episode of the Mobile Music Roundtable podcast right here on the Mobile Music YouTube channel. As you can probably figure out, we like to talk a lot about mobile music production over here on the channel, and we have some amazing guests and panelists on the show today to do just that. So first thing I want to do is just introduce everybody. Then we're going to go through a few topics, and then we can end it there and get some final thoughts on everybody and find out where we can find out more information about these amazing developers. So first up, let's introduce Jamal from MIDIculous, aka Gospel Musicians Software, responsible for some of the greatest apps out there on the iOS store, including things like Pure Synth, Basilicious, Neo Soul Keys, and their latest installment, MK Sensation. Yeah, I edited the notes, but I don't have the latest version on here. So,
Gotcha,
but yeah,
gotcha.
MK Sensation, which is a fantastic app with like 7 or 8 Pure Synth engines in there. So Jamal, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being on the show, man. Like I said, you have some of the best apps out there. So long time coming, man. Really glad to finally get you on the show. Got a lot of great topics that I want your opinions on, man. So thank you so much for joining.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Then we have Jeff from AudioKit, who's worked on a bunch of AudioKit apps over there. They got a bunch over there, including Bass 808, AR909, and of course that latest amazing thing, VHS Synth, that just will release tomorrow, which is last week from when you guys are seeing this. So it's brand new. Make sure you pick it up. Jeff, how you doing, bro?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, man, you must be doing some good work over there because those apps keep getting liked. They keep getting downloaded, keep getting #1 in the App Store. I'm sure the VHS Synth will be #1 as well. So, all right.
Thank you very much.
You bet, Jeff. Then next up, we have, where is he? Nick from MobiPixel, who is an artist and software developer and content creator, making some incredible music app programming tutorials. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, Vortex. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller, so good to be here. I know Jeff's work from AudioKit, but it's my first time talking to him virtually, so that's cool. And Jamal, I've been like binging all his content, so happy to be here, sir.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Jamal was just saying before the show that it's rare to get the developers together in one room. So I'm kind of glad that we could definitely really do this, and not only for, of course, the developers, but for the community as well, so we can get a communication going back and forth between the developers and the customers. So speaking of which, that's going to lead right into our very first topic, which is going to be what obligations do developers actually have to customers? Because recently in some of the forums out there, there's actually been some little bit of controversy where there's actually been some expectations that maybe weren't being met from people, where devs should be providing more support than they are. And then there's some pushback from developers that are like, look, you only paid $5 for this app. You don't get very much. You're going to get $5 of support from me, which is pretty much not a whole lot. So Jamal, let me ask you, man, what are your thoughts on this? What obligations do developers actually have to customers? Because of course there's got to be something, because they are paying them money. But with something like only $1 or $5, like where do the expectations begin and end there? What are your thoughts?
Well, for me personally, I can't speak for every single developer, but I personally take everything pretty seriously. As a matter of fact, just today, I had a customer, for some reason, the app just didn't read his files. I tested it with every single other person. I got different people. Now, mind you, I'm not the actual developer, so I pay a developer. So say the app costs $20. I probably spent more than that fixing his bug. It could have been cheaper to give him a refund than to actually go through the effort to fix it. But because I cared that much, I went through the effort to try and get him up and going. So me personally, I think one thing that users have to understand is that, and I think I probably speak for everybody else, is like, we actually care about the stuff. You know, we don't actually put the stuff out so that it's bad. We don't know that this is a bug. We're not trying to get over on you. We're not trying to make a million off of you and leave you stranded. Like, we literally are real people. We actually care about the product. We care about the customer. We want you to use it. We want you to enjoy it. And us being musicians as well, we know what it's like going to a gig and your stuff doesn't work and you were depending on the sound live. I have a lot of people use my stuff live. Some of the top producers, they still write me, they use it live. So we take things, very serious, and it's not like, we're trying to get over at all. So and the bottom line is the customers is how we eat, how we feed our family and stuff like that, at least for the full-time people. So we definitely take it serious. And if I was to give a message to the users, I would say we do care. We're real people. We're not trying to get over. We're not trying to, because it's kind of like this tug of war where, for example, I had a guy, this was last year, and he's on a forum. Man, there's gospel musicians, and us being gospel, we definitely got to be perfect. You know what I mean? So
no
you can
mistakes.
Never make a mistake. You can't have the name gospel musicians and forbid you ever make a mistake. These guys are capitalizing off of God, and they just hustlers and all this stuff and all. And so I sent them a private message. I was like, "Where are you getting this information from?" I was like, "We literally do this. We do this. Like, we really do this, and we do that." And this is the eye opener. When he wrote me back, he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." He said, "I got caught up behind the finger and the whole hoopla of the forum." He's like, "This isn't really me." He was like, "Please forgive me." So as developers, we're caught up in this avalanche of who can blast the developer better. Yeah, we dung them. We dung them. It's not like we're in partnership. It's like, hey, we're providing a service. Let's be in this together. It's like, yeah, we got these developers. Ooh, I couldn't wait to see them fall. So we're living in an age of social media where, like, I like your product, but then there's this undercurrent of, I want you to fall. I want you to get stuck. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how you change that, but I just want everybody to know that we're real people. We care about it. We go to the next effort. We stay up at night. Our wives are mad at us. We still answer tech support at 4 or 5 in the morning when our kids want to do stuff. Like, we really care. That's what I wanted to say.
Absolutely, absolutely great points, Jamal. Man, because people, like you say, people don't know. They get lost in the keyboard warrior, and there's not a whole lot of discipline. There's not a whole lot of repercussions for people going on forums and saying nonsensical things, right? In fact, they usually end up getting more followers, right? When that kind of stuff goes down. So great points, Jamal. Yeah, again, and of course, Jamal isn't every single developer, but this is, in my opinion, what most iOS app developers who care are like. They are working hard. They are doing this because they love it, not just because for money. I assure you, none of these developers are making millions of dollars from $5 apps. I assure you, nobody is making millions of dollars on iOS apps, pretty much, unless you're IK Multimedia, pretty much. Like that's just like everything, where you got to have a following to actually sell anything. And so even though iOS music is getting bigger and growing, we're all still small guys. We're all still a small community. We got to try to stick together and support these developers as much as possible. And yes, of course, we want to create the best experiences for customers and have customers have the best experience, but there's some push and pull, like you said. You gotta there's some push and pull, and you gotta go back and forth. That was Jeff's son. We're gonna go with Jeff next on this, but yeah. Jeff, go ahead, man.
I just wanted to echo what Jamal nailed it. Like, he said so many things that I would have said anyway if he didn't say. But another thing that people don't realize sometimes is when you get an app or a piece of hardware, even that you bought either online or from a store or whatever, a lot of people don't realize how small the team is sometimes. And I'm a lot, especially in the music industry, a lot of times it's one guy. And so, you know, I even watched an interchange on a little chat room, a Discord server, I guess is what they call it these days. So I saw an interchange on a Discord server, and they were trying to copy the work of this hardware developer and everybody on the Discord server jumped on this guy. Why are you trying to copy this? Why don't you just buy it? Why don't you support the developer? And he actually changed his tune, which you don't see a lot. But he actually, when he was like, wait a minute, this is one guy that does this. This isn't some huge faceless company, again, just trying to make a buck and run. Like once he realized that it was one guy that's like probably barely paying his rent off of this thing that you're on the internet gushing about how much you love it. And so, I just don't think people realize that too. And also, I mean, you can't find everything. One of my favorite things about making this software is seeing the different ways that people use it. And as I go through this more and more, I get even further removed away from ever even wanting to test it at all, because I'm a horrible tester, because I'm going to laser focus on what I'm working on, and I'm going to test it, and I'm probably going to get into habits and testing it in a certain routine. And then somebody else is going to open the app, and the first thing they're going to do is hit a button in a way or whatever that I had never even considered. And so testing is really important, and we need that sort of feedback from the users. And yeah, so a lot of times a little patience with, and I'm not saying we're beta testing as we release an app. Everybody tests their apps too, and that's another complaint I hear a lot is, oh, well, y'all are just using us for beta testers. Like, no, like we beta test these things, but it's really hard to know every way that everybody's going to use it. And also devices, we have it pretty good on iOS with devices. We know what we're going to get, but that's not always the case. And sometimes devices, sometimes, and a lot of times even it could be user error sometimes. I mean, if your internet's not working and something, and, there's a part that's relies on that, that's going to be an issue. So we try our best.
Absolutely. And this is one of the reasons why I love to bring developers on the show, just to reiterate it one more time, how hard software development is, guys. It is freaking difficult, let me tell you. I was just an ASP.NET developer for the majority of my career. I can't imagine doing audio programming. That is some serious stuff. I have, if I ever did, I would just use all of AudioKit's code. I wouldn't actually be able to make anything, because this stuff is just that hard. So great points, Jeff. Really appreciate that. Good stuff, Matt. Let's go move on to Nick now. You've been a software developer for many years. You've been putting out these amazing tutorials on how to make music apps. What are your comments on the relationship between the customer and the developer? What are your thoughts on the conversation so far?
Yeah, so I actually have released over 100 apps in the time that I've been on the App Store. I've been in the App Store for over 10 years. And so MobiPixel is where I release my games. And then I also have an account for Nick Culbertson.
Those are
right. My older apps.
You have a bunch of games. I forgot about the games. Yes.
Yeah, I have the games. So about 5 years ago, I shifted focus more into games. But before that, I was doing all music apps, music performance apps. And but it got to be at a certain point where the engine I was using for my audio apps got deprecated. So I had to make a hard choice between, do I update these apps that aren't making any money, or do I kick them to the curb? And I kicked them to the curb, but I kept the ones that were performing well. And most of those were utility apps. But because I have released apps for a long time, I've walked through all these steps of how not to respond to a customer who's not happy. And I've sort of built a foundation that works for me of how I respond to someone who has an app that either it was buggy or just poor performance or didn't meet their expectations. So what recourse do you have as a user if an app is poor? Well, the developer doesn't have really a legal or financial responsibility at that point. That's handled with the platform. So if you're going to get a refund, it's going to be through the store. So my obligation as a developer is a moral obligation. And like Jamal said, I mean, it's going to change for everybody. So I can only tell from my experience. I think one thing that you can do as a developer is try and set a clear expectation of what your app does. It's easy whenever you're creating marketing materials to really hype it up and say that your app can do all these things. I call that like the Tiger Electronics effect. You know, they had like those old handheld video games. They talked about how cool it was, and really it kind of,
it was like
short.
3 pixels on the screen.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing's even moving. So, and also you can be clear sometimes with what you're doing if your app doesn't try to do too many things. You know, if it focuses on one thing and does that, delivers it really well. So that's sort of the promise you're making to the end user. The other thing is that in the case of my apps, I used to have paid apps, but at this point, all of my apps are free to download and then have in-app purchases. So it's essentially like a try before you buy kind of situation. And I tell you, that helps me sleep a whole lot better at night. If someone has a problem with the app, there has not been this financial exchange. So yes, if someone's done the in-app purchase, then they're going to have priority over me looking at their issue. But a lot of times, if people don't like the app, then they're not going to get up in arms because they haven't spent $1 on it. Whenever people spend $1,
just
one, they kind of expect the world. And almost understandably so, you can download Mortal Kombat on your phone for $1. I remember when that came out, that meant, oh, my app needs to be as good as Mortal Kombat for $1. That's flawed logic, but I will go past that. And the other thing I try to do is I try to keep my apps updated. I can do that because I'm a full-time developer, but I know a lot of developers who are just working at night and stuff, and it's really hard to keep up with these changes. And what breaks in between major iOS and Android updates is different for developer to developer. You know, sometimes it's because there are new form factors, new screens that come out. I know audio developers were hit pretty hard whenever AUV2 became AUV3. We get hit hard. I have ads in a lot of my apps. And so recently we had this app transport security thing that changed. So I had to update my apps. I have to update my apps a lot more frequently than everyone else because I have ads and you have to support those. So finally, I'll wrap it up. If the app does not work for you and you want to tell the developer, don't just leave a review. After the first 2 months, we don't really read reviews anymore for customer service. Reviews are great, you know, but I don't get pinged in my email. Email is the best way to reach people. And if you do get emailed, and you will get emailed about things that don't work in your app because of user error or because you coded your app like a monkey, it happens, then apologize. You know, I think a lot of people, even if it's not your fault, then this person, you say, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. So usually, and at this point, I have a templated response for whenever I get emails because it's usually one of 3 issues. And I have a number of steps I need people to walk through to resolve it. And so I don't want to like come up with that each time. So, and I can tell you that response is, hello, thank you for writing. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Here's some things to try that I think have helped other users and it might help you. Thanks again for writing and reporting your bug. Let me know how it goes. And that's all you have to do. And you'd be surprised, like Jamal said, how it can just diffuse the highest of tempers if you just treat someone like they're a person, like they're a customer. Because as app developers, we're also super consumers. We're downloading more apps than anyone else so that we can steal them. No, not that. Not that. No.
I'm like,
inspiration. Yeah. Inspiration.
But no, well, inspiration, but also we want to use those apps and see what all's out there, you know?
Absolutely. You have to go out there and see what's going on. So that totally makes sense to me. I mean, you know, as a channel creator, a YouTube creator, I have to download a number huge of apps, just a huge number of apps. So I definitely feel you with the super user analogy, because that makes sense. And I just really want to hammer home to the consumers and to the customers out there, like how hard these developers work. When you go to a developer, the app reviews is not going to be the best place for tech support. You want to get to the email, and you definitely want to just assume that there's a very small team, maybe one only person working on it, unless it's IK Multimedia, okay? If it's anybody else, just assume that there's only one or two people working on that. And again, just try to treat the developer like a human. Try not to get too keyboard warrior-ish, and the developer will absolutely respond in kind, and you will find that you'll probably be able to resolve the situation pretty fast. So just great points from everybody.
Yeah.
Just the whole diffusing and just the treating other people like a human, because you'd be surprised in the age of the internet how little that actually happens, right? On the internet, it's just crazy. It's a blessed thing for the humankind, but there is definitely a percentage of the internet that is very difficult to deal with, especially for our content creators, developers, and people who have companies. So great points, everybody. Does anybody have anything else to add on this topic before we move on to the next?
Yeah, I wanted to add
please.
one
Jamal
more
first.
thing.
Well, Jamal first, and then Jeff.
This one is actually, it sounds very elementary, but it actually is not. In the age of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, literally, I don't think users actually know how to actually contact a company. I don't know how many times someone said, I've been trying to contact you guys forever and nobody's answering me. Or like you said, they go straight to the reviews. They don't even ask, what's going on. And literally, whoever is out there watching this, the best way is to go to the developer's website, usually either scroll all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom, and it'll say contact us. It'll usually go through a form where it won't get blocked. And you can't send a random email to the domain and expect it to get there. I sent an email to admin@gospelmusicians.com and you didn't get it. And so I think we're in an age now where people actually don't know. You could try Instagram and get lucky. You can try Twitter and get lucky. You can try YouTube and get lucky. But the absolute best way to contact any developer is to go to the website and go through the contact form. And I can't tell you how many times I see, at least once a week, I've been contacting you forever. We've been trying to contact you. Nobody's here. Are you guys up? Are you guys in business? Like, yes, we have things in place. So, that will go a long way.
Yep, absolutely great points. I think we can move on to the second topic of the day, which is Apple has begun removing older apps from the App Store. And there's definitely been some pushback from some developers, because some people are saying, like, my app is perfectly working. It's why do I need to update this? You're going to take it off the store even though it's perfectly working and I don't have any type of live service model. Then you got to look at Apple's side and say, look, from Apple's point of view, they don't want any non-working apps in their app store, right? Because otherwise they're just going to have all these customers complaining and it's going to hurt their bottom line. So I'm trying to figure out, like, where is the balance? Where can we find the line here on a solution for Apple and these other big companies? Because Google is doing it too. Google also issued a release saying that, hey, if you don't update your apps by this date, I think it was August or September of this year, it's going away. It's gone. There's nothing. It doesn't matter if the app is good. It doesn't matter if the app is working perfectly. If people love it, if there's great reviews, it doesn't matter. So that is where I'm starting to get a little concerned. And so let's go the other way this time and start with Nick first. Nick, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know you had some stuff to say about this. Where do we find the balance, and what should we be telling Apple? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think at first Apple said that they were going to give developers 30 days to do their update, and people got pretty up in arms about that. So they extended it to being 90 days, which is more reasonable, and it's usually, if you're a developer, you can expect to need to update your apps whenever a new iOS version drops. Especially if you're using ads or if you're using a framework like Unity and some of these different things. As things change, you're going to have to update it. The world of mobile app development, you're sitting on shifting sand, so nothing is permanent. It would be great if it was like, the original Super Mario Brothers was like less than 40 kilobytes. And now I play that game with my daughter on our NES Classic, and it's essentially the same ROM that was created back then. They haven't had to make all these changes. So mobile it's just an anomaly. I don't think there's anywhere else you have to update your software this much. And I'm kind of in a good mood about it right now, but I get antsy and aggravated about it, especially whenever something gets deprecated, which means it gets removed from the core code base. And also a lot of apps with iOS are built on top of UIKit, which is one of Apple's frameworks. And that changes between versions too, the aesthetics of whatever you're using. If you're using something like a picker view, or if you're using switches and buttons, as Apple changes those things, sometimes that's going to change in your app before you've even done an update. There are other things. It can sometimes be better for Android, and it can sometimes be better for Apple. A lot of times now with Apple, they won't change things until you compile to the latest version of Xcode. So that means if a new version of iOS comes out and something's not working with your app, you're probably safe until you update your app. You're not safe if you haven't updated your app in 2 years, apparently. But part of this is also because what's happening behind the scenes with the compiler and with the chipset. So they want their products to run well on these chipsets, and they're constantly evolving. And so instead of your app running in some sort of emulated state on top of the operating system, that's why it's better for them. It's more performant if everyone just updates. I've had apps on Android get removed for, they would say this ad is not suitable for the audience, even though the ad provider is through Google. So Google is removing it for something that they already approved. And in those cases, it's like, I'm sorry, guys, the weekend is over. I have to update my app right now. And then on the other hand, right now, I use backend support. I use Azure which is Microsoft service. And they just recently deprecated their servers, and they moved to like a newer version of their software that integrates with it. And they're giving developers until 2024 to do that update. So 2 years time. So going from hearing you have 2 years time to you have 30 days to update something, that's not super cool. And it's okay for me. You know, if I have to do an update and my back's against the wall, I'll put on a show. I'll binge watch, Breaking Bad's what I'm watching again right now. And I'll just get the work done. But I'm a full-time developer. Someone else who I was saying before, I used to host a meetup for developers, and most of the developers that would show up to that were people who, they're weekend warriors, they're nighttime people who they get off work, they would come there, maybe for the free pizza, that was part of it. But they would be just learning to do app development. Maybe they want to have a new career. Maybe they just have an idea they want to put out there, but they're not going to have the time to do the update. And they also, whenever they are first creating their app, they're not really signing up for the idea of, yeah, I want to create this app that's probably not going to get a lot of downloads, and I'm going to have to update it every year forever if I want it to stay on the store. That was my rant. Complete rant.
That makes sense, man. That makes sense.
It's
Absolutely.
funny.
Jeff, go ahead.
It's funny what you mentioned about having to update the your Xcode and everything whenever you need to make an update. Sometimes, literally hit this yesterday. I was working on an app for somebody, and they asked me to move or change the color of an element on the screen, and I told him, it's not that simple all the time. Like, it's easy for you to do in Photoshop. It's not always as easy for me to change certain UI things. And man, in order to actually do that and show them the screenshots, I had to update Xcode, which meant I had to update my OS. So it was literally like a 24-hour turnaround for this color change. And it's rough. You gotta stay up to date. And I can't even really blame Apple for wanting to make sure that apps stay up to date for a lot of the reasons that Nick said. And also it kind of, it definitely discourages the whole, I'm going to make one app and then forget about it and take the money and run. It definitely discourages that. But yeah, I'm thinking of all the apps I'm going to have to update, and it's a lot of extra work that you weren't anticipating. Absolutely. And if in updating that, you have to update all this other stuff, and if you're relying on a third-party library, as Nick also mentioned earlier, totally changed his course. That has happened quite a few times to me already, and it's like one thing breaks, and it's going to really, really, again, it's just updating the app. No, it's not always just updating the app. It's like maintaining what we call code rot is a very real thing for developers. It's just how it goes.
Absolutely. And look, we guys, these people love what they do, but it's just not easy. And so sometimes it gets a little bit frustrating. I know I always bring up the iOS updating every year. It's super frustrating for both users and developers. Users because, of course, a lot of apps break, and the developers because they got to go in and figure out what's going on. I mean, Apple just keeps updating all of these things every single year to the point to where, if you're not full time, it is going to be difficult to be able to maintain this app. So yeah, so great points. I really enjoyed that, guys. Wait. So we hit Nick. We hit. Did we get you, Jamal? I wanted you. I don't think I missed you. I think I missed you for this topic. I'm sorry, Jamal. Go ahead, bro.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just thinking about. I got an app. I just looked it up. I got an app. The first Neo So Keys app, 8 years ago. Haven't touched it.
I remember
working
that
perfectly.
App. Man, it's been
working perfectly. So I have to give Apple credit that once you follow all of the Apple rules and this SDK has to work with this and this backend, and once you do that, like, your app is solid. Like, it's really solid. And I have a full-time developer, so I'm kind of blessed to have that. And we use an SDK called Juice. So Juice is really good on keeping their stuff updated. So it kind of doesn't affect me. Because if Apple makes a change, then Juice knows they got to get up on the change. And then, so it doesn't affect me as much. I would say, though, without putting too much out there, when you become a developer, you're like, man, even Apple, they're human. Like, the bugs you find, you're literally writing the app developers, teaching them how to do stuff. Okay, this is how sampling works. This is why, this is the bug is coming from here. You didn't do this right and you didn't do this right. He's like, oh, thank you. Thanks, appreciate that. And I'm talking to, like, because when you get to, humbly speaking, when you get to this level, they kind of let you talk to some of the other guys. And then you're like, man, because when you're on the outside, you think Apple's like this big company. They got all these developers. You know what? Not really, not in the auto space. Maybe 3, maybe 4. And you're like, wait a minute, are you kidding me? And so you start talking with them, you tell them all the bugs and the little stuff, and you're teaching them stuff. You're like, man, like, we're all in this together. Like, we really have to be in this together. But I don't mind the updates, because I'm an update kind of guy anyway. I guess the customers probably wouldn't like me because of that. Because I'm like, no, we're switching everything to the free player. Oh no, I got this new thing. Now everything is this. They're like, oh my gosh, you keep changing. But I'm more of an innovator type of guy. And so the ADHD in me allows me to say, okay, we can do this better. Like, oh no, it's fine. I'm like, it can be better. So I'm kind of there with that.
Shout out to you guys for making PureSynth free. I mean, that's amazing, because that's literally my favorite app, pretty much one of my favorite apps on the App Store. It's one I use the most. I even have the merch, the PureSynth t-shirt and everything. I'm not wearing it now. I'm not wearing it now, but I got it. I got a multiple gospel musician shirt. I got merch from everybody in this space. I got Audio Kit merch, man. But I got everybody's merch. But it's such a great point, Jamal, that these regular people just still don't understand how much work you guys have to do on the back end. So I'm so glad that you can bring that to light, because, like Jeff said, moving one pixel. Photoshop, super simple. Yeah. When you're talking about user interfaces that have to align perfectly in several different resolutions on several different devices, where one wrong little pixel means that the thing is not working and you can't see half the UI. It's very tricky and very difficult to get that interfaces, specifically with UI, when it comes to making sure that it works in every single resolution.
Oh, that darn iPad 11. Oh my gosh, that was.
I'm not a fan of the notch.
That was the one, that iPad 11, when that came out. I was like, now how can I stretch this? All right, now I got to switch all the way to SVG. All right, but if I stretch it, I'm like, and then, customers, why don't you do like every other app developer? And because they don't like to see, the app is perfect. It works perfect. They just don't like to see those black things. You know what I mean? So we have a whole different ecosystem with Apple that, if it doesn't look like the Apple stuff, it's like, it irks people too. You know what I mean?
That's true too. But I just want to bring up one final point too that you said, Jamal, too, about the audio programmers. People don't realize, there's literally less. I think Matthew from AudioKit brought this up. There's literally less than like a dozen programmers in the world on this planet Earth that are building the core audio drivers and the core audio code that converts sampling and like sampling code. These very rudimentary at the lowest level of the metal that you can get in code. C++, hardcore stuff. There's less than a couple dozen people on the planet that's building this stuff that literally millions of other companies around the world are using. So that's also something to take into account, that the audio stuff is very tricky. So I really love the story about how you're sometimes you have to teach Apple because we're all in this together. You have to teach Apple a couple of things because it's just not known. This information is just not out there. Very obscure and high level information. So great points. Does anybody have anything left on this topic before we move on?
I'm just curious what the fallout from this is going to be. What kind of updates we're going to start seeing on some of these older apps just to maintain that. Like, I wonder if people are going to say, oh, what a whack update or whatever. Like, I just wonder what's going to happen. And I mean, it's all
sustainability. Like the sustainability. I think you're wondering, is this sustainable for Apple to continuously doing this every single year with a new update, putting this additional pressure on developers? But go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. And I think it always is a good deal when you update your app. Like for me personally, whenever I have to do it, I take that as like a chance to really, reignite certain parts of it. And yeah, he knows all about it. But I use it to kind of redo all the stuff that I had either put off or had been meaning to do. So it's always a good deal. So I can see it both ways.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I wanted to say one more thing too. Like my apps are really geared towards people who play live. So what happened with the newest iOS is that the classic motif and the classic Mo 8, and I think the Mo XF lost their MIDI ability in the newest update.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm getting emails to everybody, and I'm like, what's going on? So I tested it, and lo and behold, the newest operating system. Where were we on now? We're on
15. We're on 15.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, that broke it on the desktop because I have a Motif XF in here, and it broke it on iOS. So yeah,
very interesting.
That is the downside to all of the updates, is that the legacy stuff, and those are still keyboards people use live.
Absolutely. And the latest update broke a couple of my adapters too. I had to get an Apple adapter because it didn't work with these older, more generic adapters on iOS 15 when that came. So I think Jeff said this, but I think he had said it best word, or maybe it was you, Jamal, that said mobile. It's mostly because it's mobile. The desktop developers don't really have to deal with this many updates this frequently, I think, as opposed to mobile. And I think that's because maybe I'm not sure why. Maybe you guys can chime in on why you think that the mobile space has to update so fast. Why does Apple have to have a brand new iOS every single year when that's not the case with the Mac? That's not the case with PC. That's not the case with many other situations. Why does the iOS have to have an update every single year and force all of these, force all this development burden on developers, millions of around the world? Well, why is that? Does anybody have a?
Yeah, I think it's a money thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
always about the money.
Cash register.
Yeah, I mean, my wife needed to use iMovie to edit something, and she has Catalina. She can't download iMovie. And she has iMac 2015. So I can't update the operating system on an iMac 2015, and I can't download the newest version of iMovie. I need to hustle and find some kind of rogue version on the internet. So what that causes you to do is you have to buy a new computer. So I mean, it's definitely a money thing. Okay. I mean, I think it is as simple as that.
Yep, it really could be because they really, it's been proven that Apple absolutely does slow down their older devices with new iOS updates. Apple tried to deny that for years and years, but of course that has been debunked and proven. And we're not trying to paint Apple as this big evil behemoth or anything. It's just we're trying to bring the realities of the situation, the realities of development to the developers and the consumers so they know. We're just trying to inform and let people know that this stuff is going on. This is what the developers, are going through, and how can we find a resolution, right? So great points, I think, from everybody. I think we can move on to the next topic here. and we've kind of spoken about it a little bit, but maybe, and we'll start with Jamal again on this one and go back around. Is there any obstacles that the major obstacles, because you said the iOS updates really aren't that much of an obstacle for you. So are there any major obstacles that's really hindering your development right now that we'd like to tell Apple, that we'd like to tell the consumers, that we'd like to tell somebody about that you can think of, or is just everything's smooth sailing at Gospel Musicians for development?
Besides the little bugs and the little irritating type of stuff, okay, the support could be a lot better. I mean, if you have a rushed issue with your app, you can do a rushed review, and that usually works. But to get somebody to look into your issue, especially if it's their bug, you're down maybe a week or so, 2 weeks before a real person gets to you. First, you get that first line guy, then that second line guy. And then once again, we're dealing with audio. So the support could be a lot better.
Specifically developer support you're talking about.
Yes, developer support. When something goes wrong, you really can't reach a guy. They used to have a phone. They had a phone number that was direct. That went away in like the last 4 years. So you used to could get somebody on the phone, but not anymore. It's all email. So that issue would be probably the major issue.
So developer support is degraded a little bit in the past few years.
I would say so. And pluses and minuses, people find my app, and I don't know how they do it, but if I have a sale, they find it. So that's a great thing. Like that goes, but
Apple will do that in the App Store and bring sales to people's app.
Yeah,
right
that's
in the front.
That's amazing. The IAP part is amazing, but I wish I had more control over my homepage. Oh. I wish I had,
because there's only the icon. There's only the icon and the title. Basic, bare minimum.
Let me put my videos. Let me put some other stuff. You can put a video, but it's not the same. It's crazy dimension that nobody supports. So you got to make this crazy dimension. So a more unified homepage where you can teach people more stuff. You have clicks. You have. Make it like it's a homepage,
or like a social media page, or like a business page where you have help. Support. I mean, there is a help link, but it's at the very bottom.
Yeah. So I would love that, because that would definitely open up a lot more, opportunities as far as, okay, this is this app, and here's all the IAPs. This goes with this and stuff. So you're sending everybody back to your website, and because I have desktop apps, everybody's confused. So they think that they can, if they buy the iPad version, surely I get the desktop for free,
right? Why
why is your desktop 10 times more as your, like, do I get this for free? So that would probably be, and the other third thing I would say, search ads is not good for me. Maybe you guys have conquered it or whatever, but search ads is not that good compared to Facebook ads. So if we had something with Facebook ads that you can put your pixel, and well, they won't allow that, but just even stuff that you can narrow down the customer and stuff, that would be a lot better. But as it is right now, I've tried search ads on and off for the last 2 or 3 years, and not really that good on my end.
I think another thing for developers too is they can't really see any of the customer information. I don't think because when you get a purchase, like, it's just, that's it. Like, you can't do anything about the order. You can't get any information about it. So that's interesting that developers have to deal with that too, because it's like, how do you track your customers? How do you track your customer base?
Well, that's probably about to change. Okay. Yeah, they've been putting so much pressure on Apple, and you can tell that they've, that the Supreme Court ruling. So I've been following it a little bit. And I think it's getting to a point where we're actually, they've already agreed to it in principle, that we can ask for email addresses and direct people back to our website. So that sort of would help. So
think about that. We're not asking for much. That's not asking for much.
It's really our customer. It's your platform, but you got the 30% for that, or the 15% for that.
Absolutely.
But after your 15%, let me handle the customer, and let me talk to them. Let me upsell them. That's,
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Makes sense. I think I see that too from a consumer point of view, where we see this, everybody's got the same app page and it's just bright white with just huge thing of tiny
boring.
little text and a little icon. And there's just not a whole lot of information.
You got to click for more to get all of the info. It's not good.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, and they've had to kind of hobble it together over the years. It doesn't feel like they've updated it ever. Like I think it's looked the same for 10 years.
It has been, yes, a long time.
A long time, guys. So, you know, let's see if we can get a different.
You better update that iOS, but leave that homepage alone.
Yeah, right. Update your iOS, but you know what? We're gonna make this stuff look the same for 10 years. So we're giving Apple a hard time, but we still love them. Jeff, what are your thoughts on this, man? What on the conversation so far, and you know, any major obstacles that you're seeing over there as a developer?
Major obstacles are all stuff we've sort of talked about. As we all mentioned, there aren't too many people that do this type of stuff, and even if they do, it's actually a very broad area. So just because I do sequencing code doesn't mean somebody that knows sampling code knows anything about sequencing code. You know what I mean? And so
Absolutely.
It's a lonely experience sometimes, and you don't always know where to go for help. And sometimes some of the help that you might get or give might even be incorrect. And on that same note about it, just kind of, you know, needing, it would help if there were more people, is like, for me personally, I noticed one of the things that I consistently kind of hit as a roadblock, as I mentioned earlier, is beta testers. It really feels like beta testers are in it for that first round. So, I mean, I think we did one app once and we sent out to like 30 people, and I think 2 people even installed it. And I mean, this can even be within team. I've been on projects before where I've sent the beta to people in the team to test, and they don't even install it. And now we do get that information. We can tell when you've installed it and how many times you've opened it and if it's crashed and stuff like that. And that's all very, very helpful. But yeah, testing, again, I am the worst tester in the world.
I think most programmers are. To be fair, I think most developers are terrible testers. That's why there's 2 separate sections in every major software development company. You have the testers and you have the developers. Yeah,
I'm just not going to do it. Not that I don't want to, not that but I just, it takes a fresh eye, and it's like mixing and mastering. Your records are going to sound better if you hand them off to another person for their input, to mixing it, to mastering it. If you hand it off, sure, you can do it all, and I've done it, and I love people that do it. But if you can just have that extra set of eyes on it,
it's so valuable.
Think it always improves the final result. And so, yeah, that's the biggest roadblock for me with development, is just help.
We need help.
You got to pay.
Yeah, I mean, not even saying for free. I'm talking. You give them something they might not always be there. It's just a thing, and there's, I get it. Like, I've done it too. I've signed up to beta test an app, and a lot of times as a user, you'll hit a roadblock in the app, maybe yourself, and it kind of turns you off from using the app again. So, I mean, I've experienced it firsthand myself, testing other apps. Like, I tested an app for a guy that posted, "Hey, you want to test this app?" I turned it on. I couldn't figure out how to make it do anything. I couldn't get it to start. I think it was saying like, do this with your phone and then it'll work. And I could never get that set of motions to like activate the app. And so I was like, oh, this is why people do this, maybe, like, because I just couldn't figure it out. And you know, developers can help testers with that, because we can include notes and stuff like that on what to test and everything, and that doesn't always get done either. But yeah, for me, it's just the absence of having other people around and directly involved can be a big roadblock sometimes. Now, we always get over them. But
and that is absolutely, and that is the reality of the situation. Like we were saying earlier, is that most of these developers are just one man teams, right? 1 or 2 man teams. So they can't afford to hire, you know, a whole team of beta testers, because again, nobody's making millions of dollars, guys, off of $1 or $5 apps. I assure you. So let's just get that out there, because you'd be surprised how many people think that Jamal is a multi-millionaire. You'd be surprised how many think that AudioKit is just like making tens of millions of dollars. They're not. I think AudioKit shared, like, to get #1 in the App Store, I think you just have to do 100 downloads in 24 hours. So, you know, the ecosystem is actually much smaller than you think. And that's why I think shows like this are important, so that we can provide some communication back and forth between developers, consumers, and companies, things like that. So great comments, guys. I think we're going next to Nick to comment on this particular topic. What are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to pump up AudioKit.
Yes.
Because a long time ago, when I first started making apps, it was when the first iPad came out. And at that time, music apps were just a toy. I still like to think of them as toys now, but back then they were really toys because there was not too much you could do with them. You certainly couldn't do like the AUV3 stuff that you're doing now. But the biggest obstacle I've had has been this AUV3 support stuff. At first, trying to do it through Apple's documentation, but if you look at their documentation for the audio stuff, it is not great, especially using their sampler. The documentation is not great. What is great, though, is AudioKit's, what they've built on top of it and how they've made it accessible. Jeff created AUV3, or worked heavily on, and I know it was with that specific part of the AUV3 example using AudioKit, and I just poured over that. That's how I would not be doing audio development right now if it were not for AudioKit, and if it were not for what Jeff had done with the AUV3 stuff.
Shout out to AudioKit. Shout out to Jeff. Thank you, sir, for serving the community.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. But I mean, still, even with that, there are certain, like, it wouldn't work for a while. And you're like, what's going on here? And then you'll find like a magical line of code that makes it work. You're like, okay,
I remember that.
Now I can progress further onto the next thing. And it just builds and builds. But that's been the hardest part. And that's also another reason why I got out of I haven't been doing instrument app development for like 7 years. And that's around the time whenever Audio Bus came out.
Yes.
And everyone was like, add audio bus. And I think I remember at the time, the engine, I was using an OpenAL engine. I couldn't plug it in there. So then Interapp Audio came in, and I couldn't do that. And that was around the time I just threw my hands up. So if it weren't for AudioKit making this stuff a lot easier now, then I probably would just be sticking to games, honestly. But a couple of points to the things you guys said earlier with the testing. I forgot what I was going to say about testing, but I wrote the word testing. So I know I wanted to say something about
I do that all the time.
Jamal said that you got to pay testers. Man, I'm a terrible shill. I'm just like, I'll test your app if you test my app.
Oh, there you go. That's a
total cheap ass. Just, it's bad. With the store, the store has improved a little bit. Like now you can have more than 5 screenshots. You can have the preview videos. But yeah, it could definitely use some more work. And search ads. Yeah, I've tried search ads. Honestly, the best form of advertising I've been able to do on the App Store, and the things that's made apps the stickiest, is just ASO. And that's just App Store optimization. Back a long time ago, whenever I was first putting out apps, it was a totally different world. One of the things with ASO is if you updated your app, they used to reward that to the point where they had an updated app section. So every other week, I'd be updating the app with these superfluous updates just to have it popping back up there. And you get a boost in downloads during that time. Also, the search algorithm has changed dramatically. It used to just reward direct string matches. So if you were searching for guitar, it was going to return. A better example is if you search for zombies and you were looking for like Call of Duty zombies, instead it showed some random dude's app that was called Zombies.
Yep.
Right.
So as a result, whenever my instrument apps I'd put out before, they were called guitar, drums, bass, which is not good for branding, but it was good for the App Store. And at that time, I think Apple was trying to get as many apps on there as they possibly could. And now they're like, okay, we have over 1 million apps. How about you can get your shovelware out of here? So yeah, right now, the biggest obstacle I've had has been not having enough documentation from Apple on using like the AUV3 or the audio unit sampler. And also there are certain things, it's a weird time. They've just changed the chipset. So AUV3, whenever I'm working on it, I can have it working with iOS, and then I switch over to my Mac and want it to start working there. And I'm sure I'm just programming it wrong or something, but I've had a lot of difficulty with that. And you're not going to find the solution from the documentation. Apple doesn't even have a code example of how to make an instrument app with AUV3.
That's crazy. And that's why your videos are so important, because I've literally never seen a tutorial for programming a music app before you.
Yeah. I mean, they have some for using them as plugins or using them as a host, but not with the instrument. And the instrument stuff's in a weird state too, because, in Logic, they just updated their sampler not too long ago. And it's great. They didn't bring those updates to iOS. So there are certain things that we just don't have. For example, if you want to use Apple Sampler to change the sustain, you can't do that for some reason. You can change the attack, you can change the decay, you can't change the sustain, but you can change the release.
There's no S in the ADSR.
There's no S. That's right.
Okay. That's new.
Right. And that's what we were saying, is that you would think, you see all this logic and all this, you would think that there's these crazy audio guys in the back. Like, for example, in Logic, the new sampler, right? The auto sampler in Logic. Okay. They bought Redmatica, right? Well, I used to use Keymap, all Redmatica stuff. I still use them on an old Mac. Do you know that the same bugs that were in Keymap and the same bugs that were in auto sampler are exactly the same bugs that are in the new sampler, auto sampler? Exactly. And I am a master at all of Redmatica stuff because I do the sampling. And so I'm doing this and I literally see the exact same bugs. So they basically took Redmatica software and just redid the GUI and kept the same exact bugs.
Yep. Exact same code.
Yep.
Yep. That's a bit of a shame, because again, we do expect more from companies like Apple that are so behemoth, so big, have so many resources. We understand that, every company can't be good at every single thing. But the thing is that, the App Store is Apple's thing. Like, that should be one of their main core things that they're working on. And obviously, it's one of their most profitable things. I mean, literally, like, because of the App Store and because of the video game craze like Fortnite, that is where they make more money from the 30% on the Fortnite than most game developers, including EA.
Ooh, that's true.
That is literally how much money they were making from the App Store. That's why Fortnite had to go to war. Epic had to go to war with Apple, because that's literally how much money they were giving up to Apple, more than some of the largest game companies on the planet were actually making in a yearly basis. So I'm glad that they're sort of figuring that out. But yeah, we just have some expectations. And so, just so you guys know, before the downvotes come, we're not trying to, just completely diss Apple the whole time, but we are bringing to light some of these things that developers and consumers have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And that's just a great point to show you that, look, no company is perfect. Even Apple, they buy a company, copy and paste the code. Like, that's it. Obviously, there should have been some more effort in there, but that is the reality of the situation. So great points from everybody. I think that was kind of ranty, but I'm really just so blown away by all the commentary from today, from today's panelists, guys, because they're on the ground every single day. They really are putting themselves out there. They are out there every single day doing this, and I'm just so happy to be a part of this ecosystem where we have developers like these guys. Great points, guys. I think we can move on to the final topic. So just one final topic then, which is going to kind of be the opposite of the previous topic, which was, what are some of the difficulties that you guys are dealing with? Now I want to know kind of what are some of the new features? What's the new maybe that you're looking forward to? And either it could be a software app, it could be a standard, it could be a piece of hardware, something to do with the iOS music space. And I think we're going to start with Nick again, because we started with Jamal last time. So we go back to Nick. And Nick, so what are some of the new features? Maybe it could be a new feature in an Xcode that's going to allow you to do something new in your app, or something new coming down the line that has you excited.
Yeah. So as a developer, you have to be like totally nimble. So if something new comes out, that's the time that you try to take advantage of it. Whenever the Apple TV came out, I sort of dropped everything and I was like, I'm going to make an Apple TV game. And I made that game and it got featured and it was great and it was awesome, man. Like, and that only happened because Apple just decided, hey, we're going to update Apple TV to have apps on it. So I'm just excited for whatever comes next. I don't know what it's going to be. Like, I'm not super excited about AR, but once I actually see it, I might get into it. I might think of an idea of, oh no, maybe I do need to make an audio kit style app that's in AR space. But yeah, other than that, I'm just excited about this AUV3 stuff. I haven't been paying enough attention to what's happening in the music space, but seeing content creators like you, Vortex, who are actually sitting down and using this as a DAW, I think I need to get a mouse for it or something.
Oh yeah, I definitely have a mouse and keyboard. CUBASIS just recently updated for support for keyboard support, so I definitely have both a keyboard and a mouse for sure.
All right, so I'm gonna hijack it for a second. Why should we use CUBASIS instead of GarageBand? I already got GarageBand. It's free.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so there's definitely additional DAWs on the iOS for those that don't know, besides the free one that comes with your iPad, which is GarageBand. And so what's nice is that there's actually some competition to that, and there's some other DAWs. So some desktop DAWs like Cubase have created CUBASIS. We have FL Studio that has created a mobile version of that, though it's a little bit different. And so we have some of these desktop people coming down making DAWs. And so my argument personally for CUBASIS over GarageBand mostly is just in the professional standard. So for example, there's no master track in GarageBand. There's everything that you export is going to be normalized. Every single track is normalized by default. There's a couple other little things, but those are some of the main things. Automation, I believe, is not handled very well either in GarageBand. So automation is another big one. MIDI effects, that's another big one. So CUBASIS and these other DAWs seem to be keeping more up to date with the new stuff, with new features and new standards and customer requests, customer demand than GarageBand is, because Apple is very, very comfortable with where GarageBand is, with where Logic is, with where GarageBand is on the iOS store. So, you know, they're not doing a whole lot of new features. It's pretty cool that some stuff from the iOS GarageBand has made it to the desktop GarageBand, but for the most part, it's just kind of isolated in its own area. So my argument would just be that there's a different workflow and possibly more features that might help you.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's traditional too. It's way more traditional. And, you know,
Yes.
Something that I like about GarageBand and really applaud a lot of these iOS, AUM is another one that I really applaud Jonathan for this, because they're not traditional DAWs at all. And CUBASIS is a very traditional.
Very traditional. It doesn't get more traditional. Like, it looks like CUBASIS did back in like 94 on you know, before Windows.
If you're familiar and if you like the DAW workflow, CUBASIS is pretty familiar. But then like AUM completely throws a lot of those conventions out of the water. And GarageBand does the same thing.
It's like this hybrid. It's like this hybrid of like traditional with their own Apple-y workflow to make it easier to use.
Yeah, and it's like kind of a beat maker, and it's kind of a groove box, and it's kind of it does a lot of things. But yeah, definitely.
But CUBASIS is a DAW, like through and through.
Yeah,
you could argue that GarageBand is a number of things, but CUBASIS is they're laser focused on being a mobile DAW.
Yeah, whenever GarageBand first came out, I remember playing the little guitar that was in it and thinking,
it's amazing.
Oh man, my instrument apps need to be this good, and they are not. So that was a problem. Oh man, that's really cool. I would love to see at some point, Vortex, some videos on your setup and also what it is that you expect us developers to deliver in every audio app that comes out. Because I imagine at this point it's AUV3 support, it's MIDI support, and just what are the other things? And Jeff,
great video idea. Great video idea.
I'm curious, what are you kicking the tires with for the AUV3 support? Do you do those three apps to test AUM, CUBASIS, and GarageBand? And if it works in those three, you feel like you've covered all the bases?
Sort of. Those are definitely the ones I use the most. I have BeatMaker 3, and I've tried some stuff in there sometimes. But yeah, again, I get comfortable in AUM and GarageBand and CUBASIS. And so those are definitely the three that I try to make sure. GarageBand, even though I don't use it that much, I try really hard to make it work good in GarageBand. because that's what a lot of people are going to be using. CUBASIS, I try to make it work really good in CUBASIS because CUBASIS has a really good habit of exposing bugs or exposing little things that I hadn't thought about, or even just a different way of working than the other ones are. And then AUM is the one that I prefer. And for me, it's really quick. And so I love testing in AUM. I do hear some things about BeatMaker here and there. But yeah, those are definitely the main ones that I test. But you know what, even not AUV3 wise, I work with some other guys, and a way that people still work, and this will actually segue into your topic here, Vortex, is they don't even use the AUV3. They use stuff standalone, and then they record it, and then they take those recordings and then put them in CUBASIS or put them in GarageBand or put them in BeatMaker or whatever. And so a lot of really cool work I see, they're actually not using any of the hosting. They're just using the app as an instrument, which I love, and then recording that output to however they record, just as if they were recording a guitar or something. And on that note, one of the technologies that I really like that is not new, but I don't think people realize it's there, is this IDAM technology that exists, where you can basically, in your desktop Logic, you can, through the lightning cable, use your iPad as basically like a module, like a rack unit. And in Logic, you get MIDI control and you get the audio direct from your iPad. So you basically can use your iPad as an instrument channel in Logic. And it's awesome. It's so cool. And when I first tried it out, that's what I felt like. I felt like, oh, I'm like plugging into my rack unit over here, like my external module. And now I have this thing in Logic, and I'm not worried about AUV3. I'm not worried about what I'm in Logic. So I'm in a DAW that's familiar to me. I'm not worried about how to do this in GarageBand or whatever. And I don't know, that's really, really cool technology. If I could get some people to check it out, I think people would really, really like it. It's really cool technology.
Absolutely. I mean, using the iPad as either a sound module or a MIDI controller is, I think, going to be the main use case for the iPad for the next few years. Like, it's not going to be everybody like myself just doing everything inside of the DAW, like treating it like a computer. I understand that that's not going to be the vast majority, but still, it's possible. And Apple continues to make it possible, and Steinberg continues to make it possible with their app. So yeah, very, very great points. Being able to use the iPad with the desktop, that's why that was one of the reasons that for my article, one of the top 5 reasons why Apple, or why iPad is the future of music production, because even if you don't actually produce music on it, you're going to use it somehow as a sound module or a MIDI controller, because your competition will be, and they will be making amazing things with those things. So I think it's an inevitable thing, but that is the vast majority of use cases, I think, for iPad in music production going forward for the next few years. But I'm still going to try every single day to tell people about CUBASIS and that you can do everything inside of your iPad. But great points, Jeff. Any other points? Did you have anything else to add on this topic?
I would say new stuff coming out. I would humbly brag about some. We usually try to be. I am a cutting edge kind of guy anyway, because my brain is always thinking.
We can tell from your apps, dude. Cutting edge, dude, everything.
So being able to store samples on the external hard drive and be like Contact. I mean, awesome. I still don't know. Not too many developers are still doing that. So now I can have a 2 gig piano and it plays like everything else. That was always my goal, because I'm like, oh, I gotta make the sample small. Oh, the streaming. And then you get into some stuff where even if you compress it, it still decompresses. And so it's like, oh, so yeah, I would say that we were really on the cutting edge with that.
Absolutely.
And very glad that Apple came out with that. That actually was a major thing that took us to a whole nother level, because now, you can get it. I mean, obviously people want to, but people actually are storing stuff on their drives. And with the new M1 and the iPads, they're like super fast.
Well, not just fast, but the space-wise too. I haven't actually had to use my external hard drive for the pure synth stuff, because I've always had a 1 terabyte. So I had a 1 terabyte with the 2018 that I have, and I had like a 512 gig with the 2015, I think. So I've never actually had to use the external storage, but it being there is absolutely vital for some of these big players that are on the desktop that want to bring their stuff down. So, and you were one of the first, still one of the only apps that support that, which is incredible because now you can have the most highest quality without any compromise on the iPad.
Yeah. So I'm really pleased with that. As far as future goes, I think the future is moving into deep thinking and AI stuff. Yeah, that's where it's going. As far as sounds, as far as, I mean, me being a gospel musician, I like to play my own chords, but I realize that there's half the producers that don't know how to play the piano at all. They go by the chords you make.
Yep.
So
we sell MIDI packs. By the way, we have free MIDI packs on the website.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So
free MIDI packs.
Yeah, I think the future of music in general, which is mobile. See, right now I don't see that. I don't see iOS. I don't see a delineation between desktop and iOS anymore because the iPad is so powerful. So power wise is out the window. Like, you can stream the samples. I'm surprised how crazy it goes, but I think the future is probably deep thinking and AI. And AR is actually going to be pretty cool when you think of virtual hands, virtual lessons. I don't even have to be in front of the camera.
Education.
Education. So AR on that side of it, because I remember I started off as a teacher. I didn't start off making apps. I started off as a gospel musician teacher, teaching chords of urban and gospel chords. So that part of me is still there. So I think the AR stuff, and we have an app on there called Meticulous, actually, and that has the virtual organ, a virtual drums, and everything like that. So you tack on virtual playing and strumming, and now you're looking at some deep thinking and AI stuff. So I think within the next 5 years, that's kind of the stuff that's going to be the new stuff.
It's almost like every app is going to have some piece of AI, some little piece, even if it's like just generating something. Something is going to be in there because the customers are going to demand it. They're going to be like, why can't I just automatically click a button to do this when your competitor has that? So that's interesting. I think that's going to be that could definitely be another level for audio software developers to take advantage of. Very, very cool. Yeah, I think seriously, still my thing that I'm looking forward to still is just more apps, like just more big companies, desktop companies bringing their stuff to iOS. That's personally what I'm most excited for, because anytime there's a big company that brings their stuff to iOS, I get so super excited. Like Baby Audio just brought a couple of their free apps. I'm sure to test the waters to see, but if that goes well, which I think it has, they've gotten a lot of downloads and a lot of press. They're going to start probably bringing their paid apps in addition to just the free ones there. So that is pretty much what I'm most excited about, is the world learning more and more about the possibilities for music production on the iPad. So so great. I think we can end it there. Anybody got any final points before we end it? Okay.
I wanted to say real quick, I didn't just in general, I never wanted to leave this note thinking that we are downing Apple, because I can say it took a long time, but Apple has been providing pretty well for us. We're doing pretty good. And, the system, the way it's set up, I'm very pleased at what Apple's doing. And I'm very pleased at the architecture in general. The little nuggets and stuff, that's just, I wish this was better. But in general, just to have a dream, when I was an engineer sitting down on the mouse, and I was a network engineer, because I'm an engineer by trade, I would look. Now I'm dating myself. I would look at Harmony Central back when I would never think I would ever go to a NAMM show. Man, how do they make these sounds? And how would I make these sounds? Like, I was that guy, like always dreaming of something like that. So for Apple to provide a platform to do that, it's definitely more of an appreciation than a downing Apple. So I wanted to leave on that note, from my perspective.
Absolutely. And we are all Apple fans. Obviously, we all participate in the ecosystem and try to tell as many people as we can about these music apps and about this music production on the iPad. So definitely don't think that we're hating too much on Apple, but we definitely have some day-to-day issues that we'd like Apple to at least, address and take a look at and see what we can do. But ultimately we are fans. I mean, the ability to do what we do, all of that incredible power, the M1. it's still like a dream to me how they put the M1 in the iPad. Like I know that there's a subset of the community that's like, well, you can't even take advantage of the M1. It's like, well, you haven't probably used CUBASIS with a bunch of MIDI tracks then, but I assure you, the M1 can definitely improve your workflow when you're inside of the apps taking up a lot of resources, because that thing is so powerful. And to see it in the iPad, and now they're putting the M1s in just regular Airs. Which means, what the heck are they going to put in the next iPad Pro? I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be amazing. So I think
that is something that's exciting, is the blurring of these lines between desktop and iOS.
That's what Jamal said. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really, really cool how everything's blurring, and maybe you're going to have to price your app for the same price on desktop and iOS, but I imagine the iOS prices are going to go up when that happens. I think we're kind of in a golden age right now where everything's undervalued, as I've heard, spoken to me. But
totally agree. And we spoke about that too on a couple of episodes, that the prices definitely have to increase. We have M1s, we have 16 gigabytes. They're going to be able to bring over the exact same desktop app. So they're going to have to, we're going to have to see a little bit of a price hike there, if nothing else, just from inflation, because we can't, like Jordan Rudess was saying, like he had to charge, $30 or $200 for the app on desktop, but on iOS, it was $1. And he had pretty much no choice because nobody was paying more than $1. So gotta make it $1. But yeah, I think that's going to change, absolutely. As we get more professionals, we get more companies into this space and get more and more desktop class quality apps, then absolutely the prices will increase. So I think we can end it there, guys. Great show. I want to say goodbye to everybody to figure out where we can find out more about you. So we'll start with Jamal first. Jamal, where can we find out more about you and your app, sir?
GospelMusicians.com. And Facebook /Gospel Musicians, Instagram Gospel Musicians, Twitter Gospel Musicians. Can't believe we got those domains, but we got them.
Right?
So GospelMusicians.com.
Just Google Gospel Musicians and you will find this man. He is everywhere. All right, Jeff, where can we find out more about you, sir?
AudioKitPro.com, and then of course the AudioKit App Store page. As you said, it's out by the time this thing airs. But
VHS Synth, go buy it. It's amazing.
We've got the VHS coming out tomorrow, and I hope y'all really enjoy it. We had a blast making that one, and I think it's really turning over a new leaf for what AudioKit can do and can be known for. And so, but yeah, AudioKitPro.com. Hit up my boy Matt. Big ups.
Shout out to Matthew.
He'll probably reply to you if you reach out. So major props to him for that.
Matthew's such a sweetheart, dude. He's such a nice guy. He'll definitely, reply if you hit him up. So absolutely, we've had Matt on the show. So shout out to Matt holding it down over there. Shout out to everybody holding it down over there at AudioKit. But Matthew, man, he's the GOAT. He's been around. Yeah. He's been around forever, and just literally single-handedly changing the world, man, with AudioKit. So we can't appreciate him more. So we always got to shout out Matthew. Mm-hmm. All right. So finally, Nick, where can we find out more about you and MobiPixel, sir?
Yeah, so you can just search MobiPixel on your favorite browser, and it'll probably come up. I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I also have a Discord that I have been neglecting, but I'm going to get back to it at some point. But yeah, just trolling around the internet, always just doing random things. Currently, I'm doing music apps. Who knows what will happen next? Probably knitting. I don't know.
You never know. Nick has done so much stuff. Shout out to Nick and his website, MobiPixel. You will find some fantastic pixel art on there. So definitely make sure you guys check out these websites, check out these developers' apps, support these guys, because, man, as you can tell, hopefully tell from this conversation, they are working hard out there. So we appreciate you. We appreciate everybody watching. So until next time, everybody, keep talking music, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, Vortex here, and if you're not aware yet, we now have over 100 fully edited mobile music tutorial videos. And we make music every single Wednesday live on our channel right inside of CUBASIS on our iPad. Plus, we also have a bunch of free sample packs, guides, and more at our website at MobileMusicPro.com/free. And so if you are into that sort of thing, producing music on your iPhone or iPad, then definitely make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on the channel that we know you'll love.